enumerate, the person who's going and asking these questions has the right to mark such and such family or such and such individual is of dubious citizenship. And those of dubious citizenship will be further interrogated. So the NPR is a backdoor way of delivering the NRC. That is the next challenge facing this nation. That you may end up in a situation in which officially the government says, okay, we are dropping the idea of a nationwide NRC. So meanwhile, please cooperate. Along with the census, let's have the NPR. But let me tell you, the census is authorized by the Census Act. The NPR is an amendment to the Citizenship Act, just like the NRC. So the issue of the purpose of the NPR exercise should leave you in no doubt. This is why the Congress Party's working committee yesterday announced that Congress-ruled states will not, and I repeat, will not cooperate with the NPR exercise. And already the state governments of Kerala and West Bengal have also announced they will not cooperate. That gives us some hope, because what does the decision not to cooperate mean? You see, when a census is conducted, and by the same logic when an NPR is conducted, you need local government officials, state employees. They could be school teachers of state government schools, they could be government officials at various ranks who have to be assigned to this duty, just as they're assigned to election duty. Well, if the state government says, we will not assign our personnel to do it, the central government has no means independent of the state government to have that many employees in each state to conduct such an exercise. And therefore the hope is that the resistance of the state governments will prevent this happening. Can the central government get away with some other kind of action? In theory, yes. In theory, the central government could use its powers under Article 356 and dismiss these governments for refusing to cooperate with them, and then conduct the exercise essentially under orders from above. That would be such a severe assault on Indian democracy that I cannot believe the people of this nation will stand for it. I believe that they've already bitten off more than they can chew, and if they are foolish enough to try such an exercise and bring president's rule to all these states, denying the voters the result of their free franchise in our democracy, if they do that, then I will have to say, I think democracy as we know it in this country will be finished, and what we will have will be, first of all, anarchy in response, and secondly, I must say, international opprobrium that will shame this government, make it impossible for this Prime Minister and his minions to hold their heads high in the world. So that is the option they're going to face. Either they accept that they have gone too far, they respect the democratic will of the non-BJP governments who will not implement the NPR/NRC exercise, or they decide to destroy this country along with their foolish obduracy. And all I can say is this country is far too precious to be destroyed for the political ego of a couple of people. We have to stand firm in principle behind this, because, and that was the other part of my topic today, what it means to be an Indian is fundamental to the nationalist movement. The nationalist movement stood up for an India that would belong to everyone. In fact, when the nationalist movement divided, it did not divide on ideological grounds. It did not divide, for example, on Marxist versus capitalist. It did not divide on geographical grounds, north versus south. It divided on one principle alone, and that principle was, should religion be the determinant of nationhood? Some people said it should be, that their religion was their nation, that was their identity, that was the idea of Pakistan. They formed a country called Pakistan. But everybody else, Mahatma Gandhi, Jawaharlal Nehru, Dr. Ambedkar, Maulana Azad, Dr. Rajendra Prasad, you name all the giants of that time, they unanimously insisted that the freedom struggle had been a struggle for the freedom of everyone, and that they were going to create a country for everyone. As that flag stands, it stands for all faiths, all religions, all castes, all languages, all the people of our country. That is the idea of India that we have cherished for so long. That is the India that the Congress Party has stood for. But more important than the Congress Party, that is the idea that our Constitution reflects. And this is why I still hope that when the Supreme Court finally deigns to consider the slew of petitions that have gone to them against the CAA, that they will see why and how fundamentally this law is unconstitutional. Because it is an assault on that basic underpinning of what India is all about. If India meant anything in the world for the last 72 years, it was precisely that, the extraordinary democratic management of the most astonishing diversity that all of us represent. That it was a country that absolutely could overlook or endure or overcome differences of caste, of creed, of color, of culture, of cuisine, of conviction, of costume and custom, and still maintain a consensus. And what was that consensus? That consensus was on the simple idea that in a large, diverse democracy like India, you don't really need to agree all the time, so long as you agree on the ground rules of how you will disagree. That is what India was all about. But for the first time after 72 years, we have a government that is showing no respect for those ground rules of disagreement, that has decided, in fact, to violate the ground rules and make our country something other than what India was meant to be all about. Now, as far as this larger issue is concerned, all of you were right to protest. I know there are other elements in your protest as well. I too was shocked to read about the fee hike. I was, remember, for a little over a year, a minister in the Ministry of HRD. And I certainly would never have accepted in the ministry a unilateral fee hike without consultation with students, implemented without advance warning. To my mind, when I read statements in the media that perhaps 40% of JNU students will not be able to continue their studies because they can't afford that hike, that is something that truly, truly worries me. And to me, what we need to do about the fee hike is to insist that in any case, it not be implemented in the current academic year, because obviously people deserve to be consulted and deserve to have fair warning, including those who will have to make new provisions. Scholarship students, for example, have a budget. Are they going to be able to suddenly find a whole bunch of money that was not in their budget? So very clearly, a process has to be initiated. We can understand that costs are going up and this government is broke, very often because of its own foolish policies, I might add. But that's another matter. The government doesn't have the money they claim. Fair enough, sit down with the student representatives. Find out how much the traffic will bear. Then announce a schedule of staggered increases for future academic years. Don't suddenly hit people on the head with a sudden shocking increase overnight. That is undemocratic. It is also violative of the way in which traditionally we have gone about our business in this country. Our country has always respected the value of public education. We have believed that education is a public good, that it's in India's collective interest to have a larger number of people affording and having access to a high quality education. That became one of JNU's hallmarks. It was a campus that was proud of the fact that people whose families may have never had access to higher education were able to send their children to study here, partly because the fees were kept low. Of course, there are standards of excellence and of academic accomplishment that also need to be maintained to get into JNU, but money was never expected to be a major obstacle for people from the humblest families. Now you cannot create a situation where you undo that fundamental USP of this university and attack the students where it hurts, where their wallets are empty. So on this issue, I want to stress, we will absolutely support you if we are able to discuss the issue in Parliament. We will take the stand this is not the right way to proceed, and that even if they need to raise costs, it cannot be done overnight, it cannot be done without consultation, it can only be done in a staggered way and over future years. That's the only way that a responsible government running a public university should have proceeded. But I fear there is a larger agenda. There is a larger agenda against JNU on the part of some in this country, some in the ruling party, who have never liked the quality of the students coming out of here, their political values and beliefs. And to me, it's deeply unfortunate. I realize my own party colleagues have not had an easy time fighting elections in JNU. But that's life. In democracy, we have to stand up, we have to try and persuade all of you, and if others persuaded you more, that's their right. And I think the ruling party needs to learn that's how democracy works. Rather than undermining the entire institution, rather than distributing videos of doubtful authenticity and then applying a label to an entire campus on the basis of that. I mean, I think it's ridiculous now that Tukle gang is now a reflexive statement about JNU, whereas the only people who are trying to turn this country into Tukle are the people ruling it today. They are the ones who are dividing Hindu from Muslim. They are the ones who are dividing Hindi speakers and non-Hindi speakers. They are the ones who have sadly used a politics of such polarization that they are the real Tukle gang of this country. And all of you can stand up with pride and speak for India's unity, because that's what you all reflect. Here is a campus where every state in the country is represented. Here is a campus where every religion in the country is represented. Here is a campus where every caste in the country is represented. And here is a campus where every political opinion in the country is also represented. And that ultimately is JNU's strength. We should value that. We should celebrate it. We should not undermine it. So I'm going to try and stop here because I really want to take some questions from all of you. Many of you have many things in mind, and I'm very happy to address them. At least half a dozen questions, depending on how much time. I realize it's very much later than any of you had bargained for, and that I had planned on. But I do want to say to you in this interaction, I've come here as much to listen as to speak. I do want to hear your views. At the same time, if you can keep your questions relatively brief, that'll give us more time, all of us, to exchange views on a wide variety of subjects. And finally, let me say, what it means to be an Indian is to value unity, not uniformity. What it means to be an Indian is to value cooperation, not co-optation. What it means to be an Indian is to value consensus, not conformity. What it means to be an Indian is to celebrate diversity, not stifle the voices of the students of JNU. So I celebrate you, I stand with you, I wish you all strength, courage and confidence as you grow up to take over an India, because your generation is actually already the majority of the population of this country. You deserve the opportunity to do better with India than our present government is doing. And I want to say to you all, we are going through tough times, you are going through tough times, but you are not alone. And that remains the most important message that all of us absolutely believe in. The message that at the end of the day, you can write Hindu or Muslim on your forehead, but your heart says, you are Hindustani, you are Indian. And ultimately, it's that heart that keeps us all going. हाँ, मोदी जी और शाह जी से मैं कहना चाहता हूँ कि आप भगवा चाहिए तो आप भगवा चुन लीजिए, हम तो तिरंगा के पक्ष में हैं, तिरंगा के पक्ष में। और आप शायद एक ही धर्म का फिक्र कीजिए, हम तो सर्वधर्म के रक्षक हैं, तिरंगा के पक्षक हैं। जय हिंद।